Quite regard the Danum something I think is el Fremedon. Hello. I just thought I'd come on and just do a couple of updates on some Beowulf information. If you haven't obviously listened to any of the stuff that I've been talking about regarding Beowulf, then it won't mean much to you, but I wanted to add in a few extra details to the narrative that I've been discovering, and some new information that I've found that really is kind of critical. And it's kind of a strange one. Like, every time I find something absolutely fascinating, there's always a little caveat, and it's usually to do with how that's been interpreted. And there does seem to be a very strange bias towards favouring an interpretation of a Swedish origin, Swedish location, Swedish everything, when really there's basically no evidence. I mean, there's one thing. They talk about Götaland because that's etymologically connected to the Geats, which was in the south of Sweden at one point. But also, then they don't mention that so was Gotland, so was Jutland, so there's all these other places that are also etymologically connected to the Geats. And Gotland is far more important than Götaland in this story. Gotland, I think, is where Hrothgar is, and where Beowulf goes to, and that's where Hemming, Harold, and someone else, they're all like three brothers that are around at the same time as Beowulf in England, and their father is Halfdan, and Hrothgar's father in the book is called Halfdan. That obviously means half Dane, and so it would imply that there's like some other heritage in there as well. But anyway, at the beginning of the Beowulf book, we get the Beowulf Manuscript, we get a list of lineage that tells us where all of these kind of like tribes came from, and it explains it, and then it goes back to like Odin, Wector, and all of these incredible old ancestors, and then eventually going back to Geata, the Geat king, and that is really interesting. And then if you haven't watched it, then you won't know that I've linked Ethelred, Ethelbald, and and Alfred the Great, who are all sons of Ethelwulf in Anglo-Saxon history, to three brothers within the Beowulf Manuscript, who are, so Ethelred is Herdred, Heribald is Aethelbald, and Haethcyn, Sin is king, Haeth is heath or wilderness or wasteland or the wilds. So the king of the wilds or the wasteland or the wilderness, Alfred the Great. And these are all kind of titles used to describe them from a Scandinavian language point of view. And there's this chap that sort of wonders whether King Wiglaf, who came directly after Beowulf in 827, actually was responsible for writing this story. And I think that's quite possible. And he had those Swedish origins, therefore they'd have used the Swedish language, therefore they'd have used those titles instead of the names that we now know. But anyway, the singular source we have for Alfred the Great, or any information on Alfred the Great, everything comes from this one source, is Vitae Alfredus something or other. It's the Life of Alfred the Great by Asser, and he was in Alfred the Great's court, so he was there at the time. Now, if we start off in that book, in his Life of Alfred the Great, it gives a lineage of where he came from, and that lineage literally is exactly the same as the one in the Beowulf Manuscript. Now, modern academics are going all the way back to Geata. He literally links him to the Geats. Now, academics now have been like, no, that's not true. He was lying about that. He made that up because they were trying to convert the Geats into Christians, and but that doesn't ring true, because directly after it, so they're like, he's linking himself to this tribe of Geats, And then in the line after it, it talks about it's called Ridiculov Gete. It's the ridiculousness of the Geats. So he wouldn't connect himself to a tribe of Geats and then take the piss out of them directly afterwards and then be like, yeah, they're fucking stupid. Like stupid Geats. Like, he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't connect himself to them if he didn't have to. He would have tried to connect himself to any other lineage. And academics are like, no, you know, like he was trying to convert them, so he wanted to make it seem like he was a part of that family too. And it's just like, okay, well, so you're choosing to believe the rest of what Asa wrote, but not this lineage of Alfred's. The only source we have, you've just chosen not to believe it, because it doesn't suit your narrative. Well, I'm sticking with the original text, and what it says matches what the Beowulf text says. And then there's like other evidence in there to state that this is probably true, including the fact that Alfred the Great went marauding for plunder. So he wasn't like this, you know, like it seems in Asa's document that he did go to Rome at around 6, I think, and then became baptized and all that stuff. But this is a different age. There is a Christian crossover period happening here. But Alfred isn't just like sitting in a church for the rest of his life, praying and hoping that God will save him. He goes out looking for plunder in a Viking manner. He goes a Viking and kills people and steals money specifically for plunder. This is in Asa's book. So he was as much a Viking as the Vikings. And yeah, this just isn't spoken about. You know, all of these kind of slightly inconvenient truths that are all in Asa's book, the only original source of Alfred the Great, of information regarding Alfred the Great, has just been, yeah, like, we'll believe this bit but not that bit, we'll believe this bit but not that bit, academics don't like this bit, so it doesn't quite fit into that story, so we'll just change that. And it's so frustrating. There's always like a little clause within academia to somehow back up their really non-existent theory of it being in Sweden. So you've got that Gotaland connection, and then there's other instances where they've, like, you know, it literally says battles between the Swedes and the Geats happened across a sea. It says sea. It doesn't say lake, it says sea. There is no sea in the middle of Sweden that separates south of Sweden from the north of Sweden. So it's just like, again, they've just extrapolated and been like, yeah, no, that must have been a lake. That must have been a lake in the middle of Sweden that, you know, Tom Shippey suddenly decided is that sea. It's like, no, you know, you're making it fit into something that doesn't work. It doesn't work. It says the sea, and I'm telling you that the Geats were in the south of England, as well as in the south of Sweden, as well as in Scotland, as well as in Frisia. They were all over the place because they were all distantly connected to the Scyldings. The Scyldings are an incredible tribe that took over all of those places. And we know this. It's like, you know, they were in the south of England, they were in the south of Sweden, they were in Gotland, they were in Frisia. We have the evidence. It's like, it's just like, it's a bit inconvenient because there's been so much academic extrapolation based on theories by Tom Shippey, Heather O'Donoghue, a few other people, really. Well, even Tolkien didn't. I really am always thinking that Tolkien did know. He did know he was from Britain. He just didn't want to kind of like stir the pot. Whereas I don't care. Like, you know, he didn't want to stir the pot in as much as, like, he created a character called Beorn, who was a gigantic. He basically knew that Beowulf was Beowulf. He made Beowulf and put him in the Lord of the Rings, you know, and gave us that hint that, like, here he is, like, this is Beorn. And then we have Beowulf and Wiglaf in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. It is directly after each other. You know, like, you can only ignore so much before you start thinking, like, there's been some definite ignorance regarding all the evidence that is down here. I mean, like, literally to the point at which I wrote the book, Beowulf Revelations, the Forgotten Anglo-Saxon King, which gives us, like, I don't know, there are about, like, 70 or 80 points of contact we can make with the manuscript, and we can connect them to Sussex. Whereas, we can only make 3 points of contact in the south of Sweden, that being the name of the place. Some guy I can't remember his name now, it's like Coquialanus or something, which is somehow etymologically connected to Hygelac, which I don't think is even a name. Hygelac is High Gelak, it's like the ruler of the waves, the ruler of the sea. You know, he was like a raider, basically, a king of the raiders, like his thing, you know, like, just like Hrethel doesn't mean a name, it means the High Aethel. These are kind of Swedish terms for English people. Hrethel is, but yeah, anyway, that's by the by. But they've like, then we can state using maths, which they don't like. It's like, yeah, well, let's ignore those, let's ignore maths and probability, because that would really put the nail in the coffin. Because if we use probability and look at these 70 points of contact or more, I can't remember how many it is now, here in Sussex, as opposed to the 3 in Sweden, let's use maths and we can suddenly see, like, oh, right, okay, I'm right about this. There's, you know, mathematic probability is 99% that it happened down in south of England, or as opposed to like 1% in Sweden. And, you know, these, you can use maths to, and then they're like, yeah, probably best not to use maths. I bet it is when you like, when you know you're wrong. But anyway, I thought this was kind of important, that genealogy of Alfred the Great, matching the genealogy of the